Good evening, Winnipeg. Good evening, Manitoba. For all those joining us live this evening via our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms, we say good evening, universe, and welcome to the Illegal Curve post-game show. Alongside Dave Manouk, alongside Ezra Ginsburg, I am your host, Drew Mindell. The Winnipeg Jets dropping a 4-1 defeat to the Toronto Maple Leafs tonight. The third straight loss for the Winnipeg Jets, the third straight loss on home ice for the Winnipeg Jets, as they drop to 0 wins and 3 losses so far on this 5-game homestand. Gentlemen, nice to see you on this Saturday evening. Lots to talk about. A very newsworthy defeat by the Leafs, by the Jets at the hands of the Leafs. Really, a lot of panic buttons probably being pressed now in Jets country over the past 3 games.
Are there panic buttons being pushed? I mean, it wasn't a great game, guys. Like, I don't think anybody's going to think that was a grade A performance from the Jets. That second period was really bad. On that, I counted at least 4 high danger chances that the Leafs had. William Nylander had a really good chance. Austin Matthews, John Tavares. That to me was really the Jets' undoing. And, Matty Perreault had a really good chance, if you guys remember, on the breakaway, and then he took a penalty right after. And that's the power play that I'm referencing in the second period. But, freak bounce goes to Mitch Marner. Obviously, that doesn't help, and you can't fault Connor Hellebuck on that one. But the Jets certainly had their...
I'm going to disagree with you. I'm going to fault him. When the puck is up in the glass, goalies are not supposed to go play it. When it's up in the glass, and I remember talking to our good buddy Dennis Bayak about this with, and he was passionate about this topic. I remember it. When the ring around, when the dump in is up in the glass, stay in your net. And he left the net, and he doesn't know where the bounce is going. But I'm be curious to find out what the approach is from the Jets goaltending. What does Wade Flaherty say to his goaltenders with regard to dump ins that are up in the glass as to whether or not he should go up and get it or not? Because he got bit by it, and of course it's a terrible bounce, and it goes off the stanchion, and there's no way he's going to expect that to occur. But I'm curious what the Jets' approach is from Wade Flaherty's perspective when it comes to the puck being rung around high in the glass. Sorry for interrupting you as you go ahead.
Sorry, I was a little bit frozen there, boys. And I mean, in the third period, the Jets definitely had their chances, and the Jets, this is a bad stretch for them right now, right? Like we're seeing a Jets team. I think that you're seeing a demoralized bunch, really, and there was just something off, I thought, in this game, and it's uncharacteristic, obviously, for the Jets to take that many penalties, but in the third period, on that power play towards the end there, Josh Morrissey had a good chance. I just thought that the Jets were, for the most part, in this game, but it has to be extremely demoralizing when you've lost this many games in a row and you're building against the Leafs.
I actually thought I was here to talk about the Moose. Winners of 5 straight games, lots of prospects playing. I thought that's why you guys had me to come on to talk about the Manitoba Moose riding to victory. I didn't know I was here to talk about Jets. I guess I can do both, but
you're a multi-talented kind of guy there, Mr. Miller.
Yeah. I think people are probably going to be more interested in the Moose winning 5 in a row than the Jets losing 3 in a row, maybe. But yeah, I mean, it's a tough game. I mean, look, Mark Scheifele gets benched for 13 minutes of that second period. He was stapled to it after the Jets give up. I mean, the Jets were sloppy on that play. You're 4-on-4. You give up a 3-on-1. You take back possession of the puck. You don't have an effective breakout, really, and you just give the puck, you give up possession again. Scheifele is laissez-faire to get back off the ice, which is, I think he had been on the ice for 1:29 during that shift, and they score. And they score to make it 3-1. And Paul Maurice is apoplectic, reasonably, and rightfully so. And he loses his mind, and he benches Mark Scheifele. It's not something we've ever seen, I don't think, before. I don't remember 55 ever being benched in my mind, but it's deserved, and there shouldn't be special treatment. I mean, look, if any player should be benched, or is benchable as far as I'm concerned. Because the truth is, if you don't put in the effort, then you don't deserve to be in the game. And that's kind of what I think the message was from Paul Maurice, because more often than not, one of the big complaints about folks with respect to Paul Maurice is that idea of favoritism. You can bench Jansen Harkins, you can bench, insert player's name here, but you're not going to bench a Wheeler, you're not going to bench a Scheifele. Well, he showed tonight, if you're not putting in that effort, you're going to get benched. And I think it was rightfully so that Mark Scheifele got benched, because it wasn't a good effort. It led to a game. Look, here's the reality. It was a 1-1 game. You score early in that first period. It's a 1-1 game. They make it 2-1 on a strange goal, regardless of whether Connor Hellebuck should have played it or shouldn't have played it. It's an unusual goal. And then it's still within reach, though. That's the thing. And you're kind of in desperation mode, right? We talked about it. What kind of bounce back are you going to have as a team after having 2 losses? We haven't seen this from the Jets, obviously, yet this season. So I think that's one of those situations where you're expecting it. And when Paul Maurice, in a game you're chasing, in your building, having played the game against Edmonton and the last game against Toronto, and you're seeing that kind of effort from one of your alternate captains, it's unacceptable. Well, that's what it comes down to.
If you're a leader on this team at this stage in the season, when you have 10 games to go until the playoffs, and you're on Saturday night, and it's hockey night in Canada, and everybody talks about nonstop about how you're such a hockey savant and how all you do is eat, drink, and breathe hockey, you cannot be Mark Scheifele and that effort tonight. Inexcusable. He deserved to be benched. If Paul Maurice had benched him for the entire third period, I would have said it's about damn time. Before this season started, we said the number one thing you need to see from Mark Scheifele this year is a better commitment to a 200-foot game. You haven't seen it. A lot of the time, it hasn't mattered as much. Tonight, his effort, his lack of effort, leads directly to a goal by the Leafs that gave them a 2-goal lead. An absolute disgraceful performance by a supposed leader on this team, your number one center. You cannot play like that tonight, especially when Pierre-Luc Dubois, who, albeit he did not get on the scoreboard, he was noticeable all damn game. He was out there throwing his body around, and he was out there trying to be a burr in the saddle of the Toronto Maple Leafs, while Mark Scheifele was only interested in his offense rather than his entire team effort. Inexcusable.
How is the hit on Rasmus Sandin not on Blake Wheeler not a penalty? Like, that's what I want to know. To me, that was absolutely a penalty. Why?
I mean, I at first I sort of thought that the same thing as he. Admittedly, I was watching the game and tweeting while tending to my children and doing about 14 other things. But that's a standard with a 6:00 start, as you well know.
What were the 14 other things?
I think we were making dinner, cleaning up from dinner, trying to get in some shower time, things of that nature, just the usual kids stuff. Yeah. But then I watched the replay, and Sandin. At first it was Sandin didn't play the puck, but he did end up playing the puck. Wheeler was leaning in there. I don't have a problem with that not being called. I think it's a really unfortunate result, but it's Wheeler, I think, who primarily puts himself into a vulnerable position on that play. So at my first glance, I agreed with you undoubtedly, but after review, I did think that it was Wheeler who, not through a fault of his own, not that he was doing something reckless to put himself in a vulnerable position. I think he was trying. His effort was honorable, and then the result was just unfortunate, given the way Sandin approached it, and given the way Wheeler was leaning forward in that vulnerable manner. I didn't think it was a bad hit, though. I thought there were a lot of other questionable occurrences in what was certainly a physical and I'll say hate-filled game, especially between Joe Thornton and Nikolai Ehlers, who still might be chirping at each other from the bench.
Yeah, I mean, that was, like I said, that's my new favorite rivalry, watching the Joe Thornton and Nick Ehlers. And I love when I tweet something. The problem is people can't tell if you're being sarcastic, which I clearly was when I said Jumbo Joe doesn't want any part of the feisty Dane, even though he's outsizes him and outweighs him significantly. And people are like, he would wipe the ground with them. And I was like, well, I was clearly joking, but okay. But I mean, no, look, I liked the effort from Pierre-Luc Dubois. He doesn't get on the board, but at the end of the day, he's engaged in the game, and he's he talked about the emotional element and being emotionally into the hockey game. I liked his effort. I mean, some people are saying he was good, some people are saying he wasn't. I don't know. I for my money, I thought he was into it. I thought he made a nice play. A couple of times there were instances where I thought he was showing his what he's able to bring to a game, but I thought the sandpaper element was what has been lacking a little bit in that. And like I said, that kind of that give a shit factor that you want to see from players. And again, there's what, 9 games left now. And that's what you need. You need, again, you don't want guys running around playing stupid, but you want guys who care and who are into it. And I think Pierre-Luc Dubois, people have been kind of maligning him for the last little bit, but I think for the last 2 games, this is what you want to see. Again, you want to see more dominance, and maybe that's coming, but I don't know. I thought what he was able to do tonight and the last game against the Leafs, I thought he's kind of brought it a lot more, both from a on ice perspective, but just like I said, from that emotional level, that not taking it over the edge. Well, maybe he did because he got a 10-minute misconduct at the end with Wayne Simmons, but just being engaged in the game. And I think that sometimes that's what you don't see, right? Like from guys. And that to me is what you want to see from a top center on your team.
I agree with you there, Dave. Totally. I don't quite understand why the rest of the Jets, I shouldn't say the rest of the Jets, because some other players were engaged, but a lot of the Jets tonight, I didn't find that they were as engaged as they should have been. Again, you've lost 2 in a row. You haven't played very well in either of those 2 games. You haven't lost 3 games in a row all season long. It's Saturday night. This is, frankly, you win and you still give yourself a shot at getting first place in the North Division. I don't think they were going to, but it could be, it was still within the conversation, within the realm of the conversation. Now it's not after you lose tonight. And I'm a little troubled, Ezzy, by the fact that I just didn't think enough Jets played with the requisite emotion tonight, and they didn't match, and oftentimes they didn't match the emotion that the Leafs brought to the game, and that to me is a little troubling. I'm curious as to why that would be the case. I understood it last Saturday. You're home for the first game after that road trip. Thursday, I thought they would have come out better. They didn't. But tonight, to not have that same emotion, not to be able to match your opponent's emotion, to me is a little troubling there, Ezzy. You're muted, buddy.
Sorry, I'll take myself off mute here. Dave mentioned it earlier. I mean, the Jets get the start that they wanted, and they get the early goal. But yeah, I mean, I think, in a game like this, it's not a must-win game, but you haven't played well for a lot of these games. And going back to what I was saying earlier about the second period, I mean, Connor Hellebuyck was the only reason this was a 2-goal game. Right. Like, so, yeah, I realized, we were having that debate earlier about, the puck off the glass and could that have been handled a little bit better? But I think, I go back to that power play for the Toronto Maple Leafs when Perreault took that penalty, and there were several grade A chances. Like the top power play unit for the Leafs was out there for, I think, a minute and a half. And it was basically a shooting gallery. And Hellebuyck was the save that stands out to me is the save in tight on Nylander. But, Austin Matthews had a couple of really grade A chances. And, it was just, it was one of those games where you just didn't necessarily have the response that you'd like to see from a team who had lost 2 games in a row. And really that's extremely disappointing. And yes, we're going to talk about that up until, the next game, that Mark Scheifele was benched in the second period. As Dave mentioned, it's just not something that you're ever expecting to see. But, just overall, like, I think you would like to see more of a response from this Jets team. And you saw a push in the third period. Like, don't get me wrong. You saw it a little bit, but, it was too little too late. And, they're going to have to turn this around. They've got 2 big games coming up against the Oilers, the team that you think you're going to play in most likely in the first round. And you've struggled against them as well. So, this is gut check time.
Yeah, it's undoubtedly that it's gut check time. And I mean, I think, look, the Jets have not played well for the last 3 games. No question about that. They have the 2 against Edmonton where they can quickly change the narrative if they're able to defeat the Oilers, and if they're able to, sort of put that narrative to bed that they have trouble against the Oilers, because that was always the storyline, that the Jets were better against the Leafs and had trouble with the Oilers. But there's a lot of warts in their game right now. Now, I think what you've seen this year is that every single North Division team, especially the top four, because frankly, who really cares about the other three? Every single team in the top four in the North Division has had times where their game has gone to shit a little bit. Remember, it wasn't that long ago where the Leafs lost 5 in a row. In fact, it was Thursday night when they. It was 2 nights. It was 2 games ago. So from the Jets' perspective, and I'm reading Josh Morrissey in the post-game comments over here on the right side of my screen here, and he's saying, what's the takeaway from tonight is that you have to make sure it doesn't become 4 games in a row. It doesn't continue the snowball. But I think what you're seeing with the Winnipeg Jets is that this is the lull that appears that most teams are going through in the North Division this season. The question is, from the Jets' perspective, when do they get out of the lull? Because if this lull continues on Monday, if this lull continues on Wednesday, if this lull continues next Friday, your next 3 games all being against playoff opponents, then your lull is no longer a lull. Now your lull is a 6-game losing streak. And if the panic button hasn't been pressed already, it's certainly going to be pressed by then. So that is what it's incumbent on the Jets to find their game in the next 24 to 36 hours.
By the way, they're off tomorrow.
They're off tomorrow, so they'll come back on Monday. That's fine. You come back on Monday, and you got to have a good game day skate, and you got to be ready for the Oilers on Monday, and you can quickly change the narrative back. But if you don't, then all of a sudden you really got some significant troubles. And tonight's game certainly it shows a team that is maybe right now not playing with a lot of confidence and not playing with a lot of poise and not clicking on all cylinders right now, Dave.
Yeah, and look, that's not an excuse. It's just the reality. I think that you can. But
I'm not excusing.
No, I know, and I think like it's incumbent on the Jets to figure this out and to rectify it and right the ship on their own. I mean, we're not going to sit here in this post game chat and figure it out for them. And they're going to go, Eureka! Now the illegal curve guys have figured it out for us. But I mean, look, guys, every team, every fan base has been apoplectic at their respective teams that they watch or cover, because this has happened to the Oilers. It's happened to the Jets. And at the end of the day, like, look, the Jets, we didn't think the Jets were as good a team as the Toronto Maple Leafs, right? Connor Hellebuck is generally going to be your saving grace for the Winnipeg Jets. But I think ultimately you've got a team, that Toronto team is a good team. They just are. People might not like it. And again, that was a good team that had lost 5 straight games. And I don't care. People are like, well, they deserve to win every game, but they didn't. They lost them. So, you can say, well, we deserve to win the series. I mean, look, guys, we don't pay a lot of attention what is happening down south, and I didn't see the final score, but Dallas was out shooting Detroit 44-4 to 6.
It was I think 35-6 is what it was when and Detroit was leading 1-0.
Yeah,
and I saw that Dallas tied it up. So, but your point is, basically any team can get goalied, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I guess what I'm getting at is like, look, the Jets are going to have to figure this out. I mean, you don't have Adam Lowry. He doesn't have a concussion. We learned that today. So it's entirely possible that Adam Lowry is back on Monday. The Moose played today. Ville Heinola got into a game. He looked really good. It's possible he gets the recall and the reassigned to the either the taxi squad, or if he plays to the roster, so he could get into a game. That's always a possibility, in my mind, to give him, because again, like, I just think he's one of those. That's what we talk about constantly, is this idea of breakouts and the ability to get that puck up to the forwards. And to me, a guy like Ville Heinola can help your squad out. So, what are the Jets going to do to arrest their development, to arrest the fall? It's a good question, because right now they don't seem to have an answer, and things just aren't clicking. It just seems all out of sorts, right? Like you can't even say can you reference any line that played particularly well tonight? I can't. I thought Pierre-Luc Dubois played well. I thought Paul Stastny made a hell of a beautiful pass. I thought Nick Ehlers was good, but and dangerous as usual. But other than that, I mean, I didn't think the Thompson line with the Harkins did much. I didn't think much about the Kopp, Appleton, and Perreault line. Like, they were okay sometimes. And Wheeler, Scheifele, and Connor were meh. So, you tell me, was any line anything to write home about today, as?
Well, I mean, the Jets have scored 4 goals in the last 3 games, right?
Yeah.
So when you're only averaging, just over a goal a game, I mean, most likely none of the lines are clicking. So yeah, I agree with you. Pierre-Luc Dubois had a second really strong game in a row, but what is it? 7 games now. Dubois doesn't have a goal, right? So I mean, like, if it's not Nick Ehlers and if it's not Kyle Connor and if it's not Mark Scheifele scoring, I mean, you have to get goals from the Matty Perreaults, from the Mason Appletons, getting goals from, your defense. So yeah, I mean, there are a lot of things, and especially when Connor Hellebuck isn't able to make 45 saves in a game or whatever, 35 saves in a game and keep it, a 1-goal game. And again, like, I thought that, I mean, you guys disagree with me if you want, but in that second period, the only reason that was a 2-goal game was Hellebuck. And I mentioned the power play,
100%.
right? So like, so I thought he was probably the Jets' best player out there. And yeah, I don't think, I mean, you can't point to, one player and necessarily say that, he was the best forward for the Jets, but we've talked about it, guys. We talked about it on the Saturday morning show, like Connor Scheifele Wheeler. I mean, that's, putting a square peg into a round hole, right? Like, we know the strengths of that line and we know the weaknesses of that line. And I think, a lot of people would rather see Ehlers and Connor up with Scheifele, or you're going to have to figure that out. I like Dubois with Ehlers as well. But right now, I think Paul Maurice is still trying to find that right mix. And, you wonder if you maybe have Andrew Kopp back on the wing with Adam Lowry out. Like, we talked about that as well. Like, I think I like that move, and then having Stastny up the middle. But Paul Maurice has been hesitant since Stastny came back to being a Jet to have him up the middle. He's been a winger for the most of the year, so we'll see what happens. But there's no doubt that the Jets are struggling offensively. I think defensively, this is kind of what you expect from the Jets, right? Regularly outshot. We know that they give up a little bit too much, but there are things that need to be worked out here, guys. Dave mentioned it, 9 games to go here before the playoffs start. 2 crucial games against the Oilers. You've lost to them already 5 times this year. So, there's not a lot of joy in Joyland right now. And I agree. I agree with Josh Morrissey. Like, you definitely do not want to lose a 4th game in a row. Like, that would just be so demoralizing. I mean, even more demoralizing than losing 3 games in a row, obviously.
You know what, Ezzy, to your point, if the Jets don't put their best effort of the season on Monday, I would be like, there won't be an explanation. And again, just because you do doesn't mean you're going to beat Connor McDavid because he's the best player in the world. But you better bring like all double barrel shotgun like on Monday, because there's no excuse. Like you're it's not that you're out of a rhythm. You're back in that rhythm of playing every second day. You'll have had a rest today, but I mean, if you're not a pissed off team and if you're not going to take that out on your opponent, like there won't be an explanation. That'll be a real quiet post-game show from us on Monday, because if this team doesn't bring it and they don't and they don't play a full 60 like with heart, there just won't be an explanation. I don't think for the team not showing up again in a critical game against an Edmonton team that you haven't had a lot of success against this season, and now you're pissed off because you lost 3 games in a row.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. By the way, Sandy and G is asking if we think that the DeMello embellishment was the good call. No, I don't think it was. I think also Jake Muzzin, it looked like he punched DeMello as he was going down. So I didn't, again, I thought this was the second night of poor officiating. But again, we're not going to blame the officials for the end result. But no, I thought that embellishment call was a bad one.
Yeah, I mean, look, I thought there were a lot of, the last 2 games, the officials have not been operating, I'd say, at a 100% level, but that certainly is not the reason why the Jets have lost either of these 2 games. The Jets have lost both of these last 2 games because the Leafs absolutely were the better of the 2 teams. Yes. So you can say what you want about the officiating, and you can say that, and I'm sure, a Leafs fan is equally apoplectic about, some missed calls about, I was reading over here on my second screen, Joe Thornton was saying that he was so upset with Nikolai Ehlers because there was a slash by Ehlers that Thornton didn't like, and he thinks that Department of Player Safety is going to get involved and they're going to take a look at the slash that Ehlers leveled on Joe Thornton. Well, frankly, I mean, Department of Player Safety better not be looking at anything, because it was certainly a two-way street. Both teams played a chippy game. That's how it went. And the Department of Player Safety, which is, a ridiculously named group because they don't actually do anything about player safety, has basically said, look, the whistles are put away. If there's something egregious, maybe we'll give you a $3,000 fine. But at this point in time, both of these teams know that you can pretty much, take your skate off and try and slash a guy's jugular, and that might only get a minor talking to or a 10-minute misconduct at the very worst. So that's the rules.
Yep.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, the framework has been established. You can't go around changing the framework now because Joe Thornton is a little pissed off. I mean, with all due respect to Joe Thornton.
Why was he that pissed off, though?
I don't know. Get a grip on yourself, Joe Thornton, for God's sake.
No, but he looked like we were all watching the game on TV, and he wouldn't stop chirping at Ehlers, and at one point he was just ignoring him.
Yeah, well,
right, and like you could tell that he was laughing, but I guess he was unhappy. But then as soon as he got out of the box, he went right after Ehlers, and then Ehlers responded with a bit of a spear there. But what do you want Ehlers to do? I mean, Thornton was almost stalking him, right?
Yeah,
he was stalking him up the ice, and again, Thornton obviously isn't that type of player. We know he's more of an offensive minded player, but it was really peculiar to me why he was so unhappy with Ehlers, because we know Ehlers, he has a little bit of a bite to his game, but he's obviously not at all a dirty player. And Jumbo Joe was just not having it, so that was uncalled for, in my opinion.
Methinks he got him in a sensitive area. That would be my guess. That Ehlers may have given him a little shot in the old junk. Would be my guess.
Well, I thought he did sort of on that spear a little bit after Thornton, to Ezzy's, picking up on Ezzy's comment there, when Thornton basically stalked him the entire length of the ice and gave him a couple cross checks. Well, Joe Thornton's played this hockey game enough, in this NHL for a lot of years. He knows that if you're chasing after a guy and you're giving him a couple cross checks to the back, that guy's going to turn around and he's going to spear you right where the sun don't shine. So that's just tit for tat. That is just the way the game works. So Joe Thornton certainly can't be upset about that. If there was another slash that happened earlier in the game that, well, frankly, I didn't see it, and I don't know that anybody else did, because I don't remember seeing it on camera. I didn't see it either at any point in time. So, I think Joe Thornton maybe needs to take a little bit of a relax pill and maybe, give him some chamomile tea for the old man and let him relax a little bit, because it went both ways. I don't have a problem with what Thornton did, but I also don't have a problem with what Ehlers did. In fact, I think more Jets players needed to be Nikolai Ehlers. More Jets players needed to be Pierre-Luc Dubois. More Jets players needed to go and have some bite in their game.
Matty Perreault had a good game.
Matty Perreault with a little bit of bite as well. The Jets needed more of that, not less of that, no matter what Joe Thornton might have to say about it. And
so, Drew, to that thought, so here's Paul Maurice on benching Mark Scheifele. We have some things we value as a group. We have to adhere to our core values. Mm-hmm. So clearly, again, there's an expectation. If you're going to do what Mark Scheifele did, which was being laissez-faire, first of all, probably he's pissed because he took way too long a line. He was on for too long, the shift. And then he got off casually. I mean, again, and which directly led to a goal. I have no problem.
You deserve to be benched.
No, I don't know if Mark Scheifele spoke post game. I don't know. I know you said Josh Morrissey did. I don't know that
Morrissey and Hellebuck I believe, are the only two Jets players, and Maurice obviously spoke as well. But no, which I'm a little surprised about, to be perfectly honest. I thought Scheifele would be in front of the camera. He wouldn't say anything, but that's certainly his prerogative to not say anything of any interest. But now, by him not speaking, it now becomes a story on Monday. And now it carries over until Monday. Yep. So the first person that the Jets are going to want to speak to on Monday, look, they did Wheeler, who didn't have a good game tonight. He was fairly invisible for the most part. I mean, he had, the biggest impact he had was Sandin's hit on him. That was his most noticeable part of the game.
Which Maurice said he didn't have a problem with, for the record.
Right. Right. So exactly. So Maurice said that's a legitimate hockey play. So Wheeler didn't speak and Scheifele didn't speak tonight. That to me is a little bit eyebrow raising, because those again are supposedly your two leaders when it comes to your forward.
No, they're not supposedly, Drew. They are, and obviously Wheeler. And I'm agreeing with you. I think, and especially Wheeler, because he speaks almost after every game. He's the captain.
Especially when they lose, he speaks. He speaks almost every game that they lose. Not necessarily when they win, but definitely when they lose. Sorry,
I think it goes back. No, it's all good. I think it goes back to what Dave said before, though. The game on Monday against the Oilers, whether they win or lose, that's a game that if you don't see the Jets busting their buns for every single loose puck and trying to win every individual puck battle, it has to be that type of effort game. And I'm not saying that tonight was one of those lack of effort games, because I think we'd all agree that the 3-0 loss to the Oilers, that was a lack of effort. Like, that was a team that was tired and that was looking forward to those 4 days off. I think we'd all agree with that, right? Like, the effort just wasn't there. So this is a game, and specifically, you mentioned Scheifele and Wheeler, Drew, like, this is the type of game where those guys have to lead by example, and they have led by example for many years now for this Jets team. But these efforts are not good enough, guys. Like, yes, the Leafs are the top team in the North Division. They're the most skilled team. Like, whether you like that or not, they are the best team in the division, both by record, on paper, skill, all of that. But the Jets are also a really good team, and they can play better than this. So you're talking about Scheifele, you're talking about Wheeler, Paul Stastny. These guys have to step up.
I need to apologize to Blake Wheeler. He did speak after the game today. I missed the thread of comments, but I do need to apologize, and I do apologize to all the listeners and the viewers of tonight's post-game show. Okay. Wheeler did speak to the media. Obviously, the media did ask to hear from Mark Scheifele as well. Mark Scheifele was not made available. So Wheeler did speak, and I do apologize to Blake Wheeler, not that he gives a damn about my apologies or my praise or my criticism, but I do want to make it clear that Blake Wheeler did speak on behalf in his role as Winnipeg Jets captain tonight. It happened much earlier on in my Twitter thread. I didn't scroll down far enough, apparently.
Right. And you know what? I don't think, this game is really going to have any impact on anyone's opinion on Mark Scheifele, going back to, the benching. I just think his response, there's no doubt. Like, would anybody be surprised if he has 2 or 3 points and has one of his best games of the season? Like, Scheifele right now, is not happy with his game, and there are a lot of Jets that are also not happy with their game. So, this is a wake up call, guys. This is probably the most adversity this Jets team has faced this year.
Yeah, there's no question. This is the first. I mean, look, the when they lost 2 in a row. And I think people were upset about that, a little bit tongue-in-cheek. Losing 2 games in a row in the NHL is not anything to get worried about. So, I mean, I think when that happened, people were like, upset, but again, a little bit understanding of it. When you lose 3 in a row, and you lose 3 in a row on home ice, and 2 of them are on nationally broadcast games on Hockey Night in Canada, and the other game is to the Leafs, and you haven't played well in any of those 3 games, people are more upset. People are more worried. People are concerned that 9 games ahead of the playoffs, Dave, your team is now going through a degree, more than a degree, a legitimate degree of uncertainty at this point of the season. This shouldn't be where the uncertainty exists. It's, when you're down into the last, few games of the regular season, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think there's flaws to the Jets team. I mean, I think we've known that for a while, and there, a lot of times flaws can get overlooked based on, the play of Connor Hellebuck. But if Connor Hellebuck isn't, to Ezzy's point, making 45 saves, then you better have a pretty stellar performance from the rest of your team. And if you're not going to have that performance, then you're probably going to fall to a superior team. And that's what happens, a number of times so far this season. And look, at the end of the day, the Jets are still 27-17-3. They still have a pretty good record. They're still going to be a playoff team. People are going to say they're going to be 4-out. I don't personally think that's true. I think at the end of the day, again, we'll see what happens. We'll see how this ends up. We expect them to finish against Edmonton. And play against Edmonton. I still think that'll be an interesting series. I wouldn't go so far as to say it's a sweep. I don't think you can predict that anyways, because it's a point that was made on our show earlier this morning by one of our guests. I think it was Mike McKenna, who's a former player, and he knows a thing or two about hockey. What did he say? He said, an injury to 1 or 2 critical guys, something we saw with the Jets in the bubble last year, changes the whole dynamic of your team. So I mean, to make predictions now. I mean, look, if your team is healthy, their team is healthy, and you're battling it out, well, then maybe you can make a prediction. But as we well know, things can change quickly, and we don't know what it's going to look like in 3 weeks' time when the playoffs come around. So, again, like I said, the pronouncements and the burning it all down, it's just again, you don't plan parade, like you've got to keep even. I mean, I'm not trying to, again, I'm not making excuses. The Jets play like shit. I'm not afraid to say the Jets play like shit, okay? But at the same time, Shit. But the point, at the same time, at the same time, you don't get too worked up over it because while I think it's not good because it's now you've lost to Edmonton and twice against Toronto. It's not the end of the world because you can't get too high off after a win and you can't get too low after a loss. So again, the response is critical. Monday's game is massive. Monday's game is a massive game, I think, for the Winnipeg Jets. Yes. Again, I don't think it's going to tailspin the rest of their season, but it's more about what kind of response, what kind of internal fortitude does this team have to respond after 3 games. You had one of your alternate captains benched. Your goaltender, who's again, I agree with Ezzy. I thought Connor Hellebuck was solid, obviously, other than that looper. But you got to respond. You just can't have a poor effort on Monday.
By the way, it seems like. Sorry, go ahead.
Ezzy. No, I was just going to say it's the biggest gut check time for the Jets this season.
Yes.
Or the first significant gut check for the Winnipeg Jets this season. Any previous ones have been less dramatic than when there's 9 games left in the regular season. You've lost 3 straight games on home ice to some of your playoff rivals. Go ahead, Ezzy. I interrupted you there. I apologize.
No, it's all good. I was going to say, you've got that last game of the year against Toronto, and then we talked about the 2 games coming up against the Oilers, but then you've got, games that I think they're going to be, quite frankly, hard to get up for, right? Like games against the Senators, games against the Canucks. I think you have 1 game or 2 games against the Flames coming up as well, which is obviously, look at what the Flames are doing, guys. Like, we haven't talked a lot about the Flames lately. They're 4 points back of Montreal now?
Is it 4 points after? They did win tonight, so that 40 to 45, it's 4 points back. Now, the Habs, of course, have a significant number of games in hand, but it's not like Montreal is doing anything to make their life any easier. Pardon me, the Habs only have a game in hand on Calgary. So
Vancouver that has
Vancouver that has the 6 games in hand on Montreal. So you're right. Montreal certainly isn't doing anything to make their
Calgary's making it interesting, Drew. Absolutely. I mean, especially when you're playing the team that's chasing you. So give the Flames credit for hanging in here. It's still going to be tough for them to get into the playoffs, but good for them.
Ezzy, I just want to interject quickly because Rick is asking when the beard's coming off, but he did. A lot of people misunderstood you. You were guaranteeing a Jets win today, and if they won, then you were going to shave the beard.
Yes,
or I should say do a significant trim of the beard. But the Jets
I was basically going to get a haircut / get this big ass beard off of me. But unfortunately, the Jets didn't win, and I guess when I guarantee something, that probably means you should bet on the other team. But
I spent the kids' college fund betting on the Leafs tonight, and I got to say, kids, name your university because Uncle Ezzy's guarantee is paying for it.
Well, and I'll just slide it over till Monday night, boys. I'm going to guarantee the Jets are going to beat Edmonton, and then I'll shave my beard after Monday night, so we're all good.
I'll tell you what.
This is a great comment.
Going back to the comment from earlier today about Paul Maurice saying
is funny.
He play 3 players who were 3 feet tall if they were
elite. If they were elite players, then you would play them. So
that's a hell of a Mauriceism right there. I think people are going to remember that comment for a little while. Take a quick break. When we come back, more on the Jets Leafs game. We'll take some of your questions, so you can put your questions into the chat, and we'll address some of that. Much more to come. The Jets dropping a 4-1 defeat to the Toronto Maple Leafs tonight. People are fired up. I'm fired up.
Hit the like button, though. Hit the like during the break. Hit the like button.
While you're doing something during the break, make sure you hit the like button.
There's a lot of you in this chat. There's a lot of you in this chat.
If you haven't,
not a lot of likes.
Harvey Manouk, I want to see Harvey Manouk smashing that subscribe button.
Everybody, Earl, KC, Glenn, Justin, hit that like. Caleb.
We'll be right back. You're listening, you're watching, you're chatting with the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We're live on YouTube and all of our social media platforms.
Keeping Winnipeg laughing for over 30 years. Rumors, Canada's longest-running comedy club, bringing you the biggest laughs from the best comedians on the planet. Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Jon Stewart, Dennis Miller, Brad Garrett, the greats, and all the up-and-comers too. When was the last time you laughed out loud? Make it a great night out with friends, or book your office or birthday party. Even a fundraising event at Rumors. Get all the details and dates on upcoming shows at rumorscomedyclub.com.
Hey, Drew.
Ezzy, whoa, what a smile!
Yeah, I got my crowns done at Linden Market Dental Center, and they whiten my teeth.
I see.
They're so bright that every time I smile, they go...
We have hockey tonight. Do you have a mouth guard to protect those pearly whites?
I sure do.
Whoa, they even ting through the mouth guard.
Linden Market Dental Center covers all your dental needs from restorative to cosmetic dentistry and will fit you with a sports guard for that active lifestyle. 877 Waverly. See lindenmarketdental.com.
Hi, it's Drew from Illegal Curve here. Selling your home can be stressful, but it wasn't for me. Thanks to my friends at Zappia Group Realty, they made the process so easy. My home sold within 48 hours and with multiple offers. Zappia Group Realty took care of everything with their exquisite customer service and attention to detail. If you want to sell your home for more in less time, get started by talking to Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty. Online at zappiagroup.com.
While you can't always count on your team winning, nor your favorite player scoring, one thing you can always count on is Bernstein's Deli. They've expanded their services because the team at Bernstein's Deli wants to accommodate your needs and keep you safe. Open Tuesday to Saturday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. to serve you. Head to your phone, in-store or online to shop for groceries or order meals from the restaurant, like the legendary Illegal Curve sandwich. Just go to bernsteinsdeli.com.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal, starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
We're back on the Illegal Curve post-game show. Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg with you Saturday night, a little bit, 20 minutes or so past the top of the hour. Nice to see so many of you joining us in the chat. So many familiar faces, so many new faces. Nice to see so many of you. I want to read the direct quote, the full quote from Joe Thornton about his feud with Nikolai Ehlers tonight.
I was going to bring that up if you didn't, Drew. It's a good quote.
Here's the direct quote. I think NHL player safety is going to look at that slash and not be happy. That's what started everything. And I'm not going to dive or anything like that and throw up my hands, but they'll probably take a look at that. I'm sure something will get done. I would suggest that he's going to be disappointed. Again, he's pissed off, and I don't know. I didn't see the slash, and as far as I know,
none of us have seen the slash yet, so it's kind of hard.
As far as I know, the broadcast didn't show the slash either, unless
they didn't show it.
They didn't show it, so I'm not sure what the slash is. But Joe Thornton is certainly fired up about it, and that'll be something.
You got to think with Joe Thornton, he's not making this up. Like, I mean,
no,
I would imagine that he's
a slash, right?
Yeah, like he's enough. He's credible enough, and he's a big Stern fan, but he's credible enough to believe that something obviously happened that pissed him off. I mean, I'm not going to suggest that something didn't, but at the same time, like, you know, you tried to get back, and I mean, look, give Nikolai Ehlers credit. You got to give the guy credit. Like, he laughed in the face of Joe Thornton, and he like wasn't afraid to like stand there. I mean, and actually, I thought it's funny because if I'm Joe Thornton, my bigger concern would be him pushing a ref out of the way to get at Nikolai Ehlers. Like, if you want to talk about players,
that's an amazing comment from Troy Stevens right there. Not a boy, Troy.
but you're right, Dave. I noticed that. That's when they both got coincidental minors towards.
And I just
the
thought
end
to
of the
myself, like, I was just like, hey, we just pushed the ref out of the way. I mean, again, I don't really care, but I bet our friends at Scouting the Refs might have an opinion as to what the about that move, if you will.
He definitely made.
Sorry, go ahead.
He definitely made aggressive. He definitely made aggressive contact with an official in an effort to get at Ehlers. Now, I'm not advocating for it to be an abusive official penalty or anything like that. Yeah. But he definitely was. He was so pissed off by that slash that none of us have seen that he certainly lost his mind a little bit. And you don't see a veteran player like that. And remember, what was it, 2 weeks ago on a Saturday night? Was it 2 Saturday nights ago where Corey Perry basically was banished to the Montreal Canadiens dressing room after that 5-0 game when he lost his cool. So, you know, Thornton, Perry, I don't know what it is about some of these old timers as of late. I mean, I like calling them old timers because even though I think they're still younger than I am, but that's a separate issue altogether. But, you know, it's certainly very interesting that a lot of these, Thornton and then Perry a couple of weeks ago getting fired up, having played against the Winnipeg Jets.
Drew, I was going to say there isn't an amount of money high enough that I wouldn't pay to hear what Joe Thornton and Nikolai Ehlers were saying, both on the ice and in the penalty box, because Thornton, he wouldn't stop. Like, don't get me wrong, like Ehlers was chirping him a little bit on the ice and in the penalty box as well, but like Thornton, like he didn't stop. It's like he was trash talking for the full 2 minutes he was in the box. So you're right, he was upset, and it seemed like, you know, when he came out after the original penalty, he was much more upset, which is weird because you would think that, you know, he would cool off a little bit in the penalty box. So he had an axe to grind with Ehlers. So hopefully, you know, someone will post that on social media. I'm sure someone will find it and we'll see it. But yeah, like it goes back to what we said before, though, guys, right? Like between the Jets and Oilers, the Jets or Leafs, or the Jets and Oilers, like these teams have played each other so many times in this unique season. They're fed up, right? Like I think there's probably a lot of players, you know, if you injected them with truth serum, that would say, let's get the playoffs started already, right? Because there's going to be a lot of games towards the end of the season. We talked about between the Jets and Senators, Jets and Canucks, that aren't going to have a lot of impact on the standings at that point. So I think you're going to see this type of hockey, you know, played a lot here. And I really do think the Jets and Oilers is going to be a chippy game as well, because these two teams know there's a good chance they're going to play each other.
You're exactly right, and I'm multitasking here, and I'm looking at our Twitter feed, and Farms on Twitter sent us a video of Joe Thornton after a whistle going up and giving a little bit of a little spear poke into the nether regions of Matthew Perreault. So again, pot kettle black, as it usually is, you know, when it comes to professional athletes. But for whatever reason, it was certainly a battle to watch all game long between Nikolai Ehlers and Joe Thornton. And
that was a little, I'm just watching it right now, Drew. That was
it wasn't anything significant. It was a little,
that was nothing.
I know it was, but I'm just saying that, you know, it does go. Look, Joe Thornton is not shy about also putting his stick.
He didn't have a halo above him, that's for sure.
That's my point. Is like, you know, you don't survive in the NHL for this many years without knowing the little tricks of the trade. And Joe Thornton is able to employ those tricks as well as anybody else. And that's not a criticism of him. Good for him. You know, you're Joe Thornton. You've earned the right to be a little bit of a bear on the ice every now and then. But when he comes back at you in the same way, you can't then complain about it. I really do want to see what this slash was, because again, nobody has been able to pinpoint it, but it's left the guy absolutely apoplectic and furious with Nikolai Ehlers, the likes of which you don't necessarily see on a regular game basis.
Yeah, I mean, I again, like I said, it seems to become a little bit of a sideshow. I was definitely enjoying it. I thought it was
Sorry, I'm trying to keep it together. That's the thing with this format. Like, you see these comments, and you it's impossible not to laugh at that one from Kenny's water bottle. I love it.
Well, I mean,
is Kenny's water bottle? Is that Ken Wheat's water bottle?
Yeah, because Sean made a point about Kenny being very hydrated. So, although the only thing I will say, Kenny's water bottle, is that really your image should actually be Kenny's water bottle, not a picture of Paul Maurice. I'm not trying to chastise you. I'm just giving you a little tip. I think personally you should probably go with a picture of Kenny drinking from the water bottle. That would be my thing of what your image should be. But I like the name.
And frankly,
Dave, what are you talking about right now?
No, he's right. He's right. If we're the post game show and Ken and Sean are the post game show, I would tune in for the post game show featuring Kenny's water bottle and Sean's headband. I'm just saying, guys, you need to make that happen. You know, there needs to be at least 3 or 4 post-game shows happening after each and every Jets game, but one after another. I want there to be a show going on at 4 a.m. that is only watched by like 3 late night security guards and the unemployable. That's what I also want going on there.
You know what I think has happened? I think we've done so many post-game shows that we're absolutely losing our minds right now. I think that's what's happening.
That's a fair point as well. I saw some questions coming into the chat, and we encourage you to drop some questions in so that we can we'll address some of them. Sort of, how do the Jets get better on Monday? What do the Jets need to do on Monday to ensure that they're back to being the team that we've seen a lot this season, that was, you know, at the top of the North Division or right next to the top of the North Division, and not the team that we've seen as late that's been struggling to get goals and struggling to get wins together?
Well, first of all, I think, you know, we've talked about this so many times, and I realize it's a cliche in hockey, but the Jets have to get back to a speed game. And against the Leafs and the Oilers, I mean, that's the only way that you're going to win. And we talked about Pierre-Luc Dubois, Nick Ehlers, and Paul Stastny was the Jets' best line tonight. And not saying that Scheifele, Connor, and Wheeler had a bad game. I wouldn't say I wouldn't go as far as to say that. But I think you're going to have to see more sustained pressure. And again, like, these are cliches, guys, but like, you just didn't see a lot of second chances tonight, right? Like, you just didn't see a lot of those, what we like to call high danger chances, right? And that's, to me, the only way the Jets are going to be successful in the playoffs. And you're right, Drew. I mean, we've seen that. We've seen the Jets, have success against Montreal. We've seen them have success against Toronto. We haven't seen it against Edmonton. And I think that's why that places even more importance, like Dave said earlier in the postgame show, on this next game against Edmonton. I don't think it can be overstated. Like, and we're not talking necessarily like the Jets have to beat the Oilers 5-0. It's that they have to come out with a full 60-minute effort in which you see the Jets of old, because these last 3 games, I'm sorry, that's not the Jets team that we've been used to watching.
And the one thing I want to talk about, because it's something Pascal Vincent talked to me about during the postgame show after the Moose game, was he talked about how well connected his team was and how they played like a 5-man unit. And I think that's one thing we're not seeing from the Jets. There's a lot of individual play. There's not a lot of that 5-man unit complete game that you need to see from a team. I mean, again, hockey's a team game. You can throw a bunch of individuals out there and you're not going to have, a success. Maybe you will because they're so talented. But the reality is you have to work together as a unit. And I think that's, like I said, I trust Pascal Vincent. He's a pretty respected hockey mind. And that's one of the things he pointed to. And he said that was, I mean, they dominated the Heat. Now, the Heat aren't a particularly great team, but the Moose were like, it was like
17-3, the shots and goals.
Yeah, it was 17. And if it wasn't for Garrett Sparks, who pummeled the crap out of one of the, I think he was pissed at Juno Luoto because he went through his crease, but he ended up, I think it was Jones. I think it was Nicholas Jones that he was pummeling with his blocker. I tweeted a video of it on my IC Dave account because it's not something you see very often. It was something if Mikkel Burton would have been in that, I would have expected it more from him. But that to me is what I think you need to see from the Winnipeg Jets is more of that 5-man unit, buy-in, collective team play, because that's how you're going to win. You're not going to win by one guy taking over a game, and you don't have Connor McDavid. So you have to win as a group, and that to me is what is going to be one of those keys. And like I said, the Moose do it. We talked about this idea of, and Pascal Vincent said they speak the same language. So speak the same language and get it done.
Speaking of language, here's Jets head coach Paul Maurice.
We have some things we value as a group, and Mark's a real competitive guy, and sometimes that gets the best of him, I think, and we just need to adhere to our core values.
We'll go next to Mike McIntyre from the Winnipeg Free Press. Go ahead, Mike.
Paul, when we asked Connor Hellebuck, he said that something like that sends a message to everybody that nobody's safe. You got to earn what you get, kind of thing. How did you feel Mark and I guess the rest of the team responded to that move?
I like the emotion on our bench. I liked the third period. Connor got pulled the other night. He's clearly one of our leaders. And that, doesn't sit well with those guys. But as I said, I like this group. I like Mark. I like all of them, we just have to adhere to those things. Now is the time to make sure we get it right. Now is the time to dial in those parts of our game, especially in this, you lose 3 in a row. This is the perfect time to handle your problems, to deal with it when you, going into the stretch.
We'll go next to Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet. Go ahead, Sean.
Paul, what could your team have done better tonight?
Oh, you're going to have to be more specific than that, my friend. I just worked hard for 2.5 hours.
Okay, I'll hold on.
No, go ahead. No, we'll give Sean a chance. He's tightening it up. I can feel it.
Well, I'll take it in a different direction. What did you think of Sandin's hit on Wheeler and Kyle Connor's response?
I don't have a whole lot of problem with most hits that aren't called in the NHL. I really don't. I like the intensity of the game. I love what KC's emotional level was at for that. I like the edge in the game. I like the barking between benches and barking at the refs. I thought that was the best part of the game. We had some bite. We got our heart rates up. The language went right down the tubes. It was right. It was good. I like that.
We'll go next to Murat Atesh from The Athletic. Go ahead, Murat.
You'll accept the premise that this is starting to look like playoff hockey. What's the process between now and getting the Jets ready to win games like this and the one the other night?
Yeah, enjoying it. That the first part of the process is to not come to the rink just down because you lost 3 in a row, but it's getting into that fight, right? Like it's getting into it and getting to enjoy it and getting the energy back up on the bench. And I thought we had that in the third. I kind of like that it's a grinding thing for us right now. And, you know, I'm glad we're going through it right now.
We'll go next to Scott Villick from the Winnipeg Sun. Go ahead, Scott.
Well, do these benchings, do they happen in a vacuum, or is this something that you saw kind of coming for a little bit? Like, is this something you needed to respond to, I suppose?
Oh, it's something we've been good at for the year. We're just not going to lose those good things now. That's all.
We'll go next to Paul Friesen from the Sun. Go ahead, Paul.
3 losses in a row, Paul, for the first time.
Yeah.
First place, tell me where it leaves that hope, I guess, and how does this set the stage for 2 versus Edmonton then?
Yeah, this is the right time for us to deal with this. We haven't had it this year, you know, and that's a real positive thing, right? You've been resilient, you've been able to come back, but we haven't had that stretch, knock on wood, fortunately, where we've had to run injuries or we've had that negative feeling sitting in our room. And, you know, you hate losing hockey games, but you got an opportunity to deal with it now and talk about it and get it out there and get our energy level right. You know, they just lost 5, so they had it right when they came in 2 games. We're going through it now. So Edmonton did earlier in the year when Toronto ran 3 on them at home. So this happens to every team. It just hasn't happened to us yet. So here it is now, and we got the next 3 will be against playoff teams, and we got to find our way out of it.
That's Jets head coach Paul Maurice addressing the media in tonight's post-game comments. Certainly not pressing the panic button. I thought the sort of the final comment was the most accurate one, where he says that, you know, this is the time to go through it. If you're going to go through these doldrums, if you're going to go through this struggle, now is the time to do it. It's not the time to do it isn't when the playoffs start. And he said, you know, basically every team does go through things like this. And again, that is also fairly accurate. The question is, when do the Jets get out of this? Do the Jets get out of it Monday and Wednesday against the Oilers? Do the Jets get out of it next Friday against the Habs? Or does it continue to tailspin and become something that they can't get out of? And that's the key question going forward for this coming week for the Winnipeg Jets. Really, their final 3 games against playoff teams, because that last game of the season against the Leafs on May the 14th isn't going to be a real hockey game because both teams should have clinched a playoff spot by that point in time. So the question is, how and when do the Jets get out of the tailspin that they currently find themselves in?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, one of the comments that I thought was the most interesting in Paul Maurice's post-game comments there was when he was talking about, you know, what was happening, you know, around, you know, that hit and the Jets' response and how he was saying that, you know, it's you know, he uses that grinder term a lot, but, you know, it goes back to what Dave was saying before about, you know, like, look at who has scored the goals over these last 3 games, right? The shutout against Edmonton. So obviously no one scored in that game, but, you know, Ehlers gets the only goal tonight. And last game it was Scheifele, Connor, and Kopp, right? So those are the guys that have been your top scorers the whole year. And I think that it did look difficult. It was a weird game, you know, in that sense, guys. Like there wasn't a lot of continuity, I would say, and a lot of that has to do with all the penalties the Jets were taking. And the Leafs took a few as well, but you know, there just didn't seem to be, again, any line that was really clicking. Like there were some good scoring chances, no doubt. You know, Matty Perreault's one stands out. Like, you know, Paul Stastny had a good scoring chance. You know, we talked about Ehlers, you know, had a strong game. But you know, aside from that, it just was one of those games where it just didn't seem like the Jets as a team just had that offensive touch that you've come to expect. Like the Jets are a top offensive team in the league, right? Like I don't know what they are right now in goals for, but like 5th, 6th, whatever it is, they're a top 10 offensive team. And tonight they didn't look like that type of team. So that is probably my biggest concern with this Jets team. The physicality and some of the calls for the Jets having to play tougher. Like I just don't think that's the case. I think the biggest concern has to be, or one of the biggest concerns, Dave, has to be the lack of goal scoring right now.
Well, yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Dave.
No. I agree with that. I think there's, to me, the comment that kind of stood out from Paul Maurice was the idea that now is the time to go through this, and as opposed to a couple games left in the season and suddenly the wheels fall off. So look, if you can turn this around and you can get your team rolling again, then people are going to be less concerned. If you can go and beat Edmonton, suddenly blow it all up is nothing. If you lose all 5 of these games, or you only win 1 of the 5 at home, folks are going to be concerned in that panic button, as opposed to the like button for the record. That's a segue to start hitting that like button, folks. Make sure you hit that like button. Anytime anybody wants to talk about the panic button, I'm talking about the like button, because forget about the panic for the Jets. You like Illegal Curve. Make sure you hit that like button. Anyways, back to Paul Maurice. So I would just say that, and as he's 100% right, you got to score. You got to score. You can, if you don't score, I don't care how good Connor Hellebuck is, he's not scoring goals for you. So this is a team that needs to start firing. And again, and look,
and the Jets,
I was just going to say, Paul Maurice isn't throwing Mark Scheifele under the bus. I know that people are wanting him to be strong, aggressive, whatever you want to say. Guys, he's an experienced head coach. He knows how to handle the media. I'm sorry. I mean, we're in the media, but I know he knows what to do. He knows what to say. It's not a function of not being able to, he knows how to say what he's saying without tossing his guys under the bus. Sometimes every once in a while it squeezes out. He's a little angry and he'll let some, horseshit back chat kind of slip out there. But the point is, generally, he's still not, and especially when he knows that there's, quote, controversy a brewing and folks are sniffing and the Sharks are circling, Sharks being us, then what ends up happening is that's when he cauterizes the wound, if you will, and he says, okay, now we're going to end that right now. So again, like I said, I just thought his comments were fairly measured, basically talking about, and again, like what's he going to do? Yeah, I don't know what the hell to do. We're fucked. Like it's just not going to happen. So
I like Dave working blue tonight, I got to say, Ezzy. I mean, Dave is dropping F-bombs. He's dropping S-bombs,
Jerry Seinfeld's not going to like that.
I was going to say, Dave is the late night show at the Friars Club tonight, given the language that he's choosing to use.
As long as my niece isn't watching, I'm okay.
Well, there you go. Your niece has heard this language before. Isn't she like 17 now?
She's older enough, but it doesn't matter. Gotta maintain that.
Don't worry, Dave. We'll take care of it in post.
That's right. What post? That's the only problem. Our post production is Dave just uploading it, but that's okay. Yeah, that's the way it is. There you go. Dave After Dark. That's pretty funny there, Troy Stevens. I agree with that. Question from Paul Adet there. The Moose play tonight. The Moose played this afternoon, and they were victorious. Eric Comrie becoming the all-time wins leader for the Manitoba Moose among goaltenders. So that's great for Eric Comrie, good friend of ours, good friend of the show, and great for him to be so honored to become the all-time wins leader for the Manitoba Moose. And I tweeted it. I know you tweeted it too, Dave. He's just such a nice guy that I know in the media you're not supposed to root for people and you're not supposed to care who wins, but it's nice to see nice people get rewarded. And Comrie certainly counts as a nice person getting rewarded.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And he passes Corey Schneider, who's got a storied legacy with the Manitoba Moose 1.0. So well-deserved. And, it's funny. I asked Pascal Vincent after the game today, I said, Pascal, like what you've been around since Eric Comrie was drafted. You're the head coach. You know this guy as well as anybody in the organization, maybe aside from Rick St. Croix, the goalie coach with the Manitoba Moose. And I said, what can you talk about his impact? And he looked at me through Zoom, of course. And he said, Dave, there's not enough time. And it's true. Like, that's how much he, and he's, the other thing he said about Eric Comrie was he said, the players played for him tonight. They really did. I mean, remember, he hasn't played a lot of hockey this season. This was only his third game. He's played one AHL, one NHL game, but he's an MVP guy for this team. The players love him. And again, like you could just tell, like Juno Luoto got the puck from the final game puck for him. So yeah, well, speaking of Eric Comrie, he's going to be on the post game show with Ken and Sean.
He's actually on now.
Oh, he's on right now. So they're going to start. So we're probably going to wrap it up relatively soon. But you know, and again, like I said, the Moose. It was a great game. You want to see it? Go to illegalcurve.com. We've got the post game interviews with Eric Comrie. Talked to Dominic Tadanato, who's playing in his second game. He had 2 goals playing on a line with Cole Perfetti, and Cole Perfetti was dynamic, goal and 2 assists. So lots to like from the Moose. And again, like I'm in a broken record, but for the first time in the Moose history, all 6 defensemen playing were Jets draft picks. So that was awesome. There's a lot to like from the Jets from these guys. There's at least 4 of them who are, in my mind, solid shots to make the NHL, and you could have more. You never know. So there's a lot to like. Go to illegalcurve.com. We've got all the highlights, all the interviews from the Moose game, from the Jets game on the website.
And I would not be the least bit surprised if that last game of the regular season, that Friday, May 14th game, if the starting goaltender for the Winnipeg Jets for that game would be Eric Comrie. That would not surprise me at all. You know, throw him a bone, get him a game at the NHL level this year.
Maybe Cole Perfetti, maybe Dylan Samberg.
I would expect Cole Perfetti, Dylan Samberg, all those guys who are going to eventually become the Black Aces for the Winnipeg Jets once the playoffs begin. I would not be the least bit surprised to see. It'll be quite an interesting lineup likely on that Friday, May 14th, but we still got about 9 or 8 games before we get to that final game. Ezzy, your final thoughts for tonight before we wrap it up and we send everybody over to Kenny and Rennie to keep the post-game conversation going.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody that's tuning in right now should absolutely go check out Kenny and Rennie and special guest Eric Comrie. Final thought, Drew, just, Jets have to win this next game. Like I think that's Captain Obvious speaking, but
the man wants his beard off. He wants his beard off badly.
No, exactly. Like that's kind of why I was a little bit depressed to start off this post-game show, because I really want to shave off my beard, Jets. So let's get that win against the Oilers, and let's get back in the win column.
There you have it. That's good final thoughts from you there, Mr. Ginsburg. Want to give a big shout out to our sponsors, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, Linden Market Dental Center, Bernstein's Deli, Zappia Group Realty, and Boston Pizza. Support these fine local businesses because they support Illegal Curve Hockey. We thank everybody for joining us both this morning with the Illegal Curve Hockey Show and tonight with the Illegal Curve post-game show. We always appreciate the interaction, the conversation, the chat, less so than what whoever JH is doing in the chat right now. It might be that he gets a bit of a put user in timeout, and I have the power, and I just used it accordingly. You don't get to yell at our fans, JH, when it comes to that. Not only the only people who get to swear.
Dave is the only one that gets to swear.
That's right. The only person who gets to swear on this show is Dave Manouk. For Dave Manouk, for Ezra Ginsburg, I'm your host, Drew Mindell. We'll be back Monday night with the post-game show after the Jets and the Oilers. It's a late game, 8 o'clock puck drop on Monday night, so post-game probably around 10:30, 10:35, give or take a couple of minutes there. But until Monday night at around 10:30, we wish you good night and good luck, and thanks for watching the Illegal Curve post-game show.